Hey everybody, Josh Sigurdson, World Alternative Media here, and of course we're joined by author and economic analyst here at WAM, John Sneisen. And as the Zero Hedge article goes into, Congress just quietly formed a committee to bail out 200 pension funds. And as it kind of elaborates on, Congress is actually planning for the failure of the U.S. pension system. And as the government was working on the recent new budget deal and subsequent boost in government spending, which was, by the way, insane, and Trump voted for it. Just an update there. He said he didn't like it, but he still voted for it. Real principle there. But anyway, Congress quietly snuck in a provision that forms a committee which would use federal funds to bail out as many as 200 multi-employer pension plans where employers and labor unions jointly provide retirement benefits to employees. As is often the case, the rescue plan is too little too late. The U.S. pension system is beyond repair, and if you're depending on pension income to carry you through retirement, it's time to consider Plan B. There are both government and corporate pension plans. Boston College estimates the nation's 1,400 multi-employer plans, corporate, are facing a $553 billion shortfall, and around 1/4 of those are in the red zone, meaning they'll likely go broke in the next decade or so, and probably less than a decade, unfortunately. But Congress's committee, assuming it works, which it usually wouldn't, any government program, come on, it usually makes it worse, wouldn't even rescue the red zone plans, much less the remaining 1,200. And it doesn't even begin to address the real problem, the $7 trillion funding gap faced by the government's own pensions. So this is a quote unquote, private, pension issue. This is just exactly why individuals need to start saving for themselves and being independent, not dependent on government and banks, because they think that their money's safe, that these other people will take good care of the money that they're basically forced at gunpoint to give up when they're working hard every day and unable to save for themselves and, put into assets that they believe in and put into capital gains, put into cash flow, put into whatever type of financial responsibility, which is so important to human ability to rule themselves and self-govern. Instead, just depend on government and banks to watch over you and make sure you don't end up in debt, which is something that they benefit from. John, what do you think about this?
Well, I think, as you said, you need self-responsibility and take your own charge over your life, and never think you're going to be dependent on receiving a government pension at the end of your time when you actually want to retire. That is never going to happen for me and Josh, and probably not for most people that are alive right now.
Which is why we need to save for ourselves.
Yeah, exactly. It's so important, and of course, with a lot of these pension funds, these gigantic pension funds, I looked at a couple recently because my mom was saying the AFP in Norway and Denmark, it's a massive pension fund that is kind of private, semi-private, where they invest in different things. And I went in and took a look at what they're invested in. It was 80% equities. It was insane. 80% publicly traded equities on the public exchanges. It wasn't even private ones. And that is insane. And that's what you see with the Norwegian oil fund, like the big sovereign wealth funds. Everybody's just piling in because you're making mass amounts of money on stocks. And then, of course, with massive low amounts of bond yields, because that's what they tried to survive on, is all those bond yields that they got, which was a lot higher. Some of them were dependent on, 5 to 8% that they needed to yield every year. Well, the problem is going to come, was with the bond yields. Now they're really losing out. And then, of course, with the stock market being in an epic bubble everywhere, a lot of stock markets are really struggling. And the last month now, we've seen a lot of volatility coming back because people are seeing that, this whole recovery that we're in, which was really, we've been in depression ever since 2008. Things have just gotten worse, but just papered over.
Yeah, well, these banks that people are trusting with their pensions, etc. Let me just quickly go over something that we reported on recently that John put together, which is that JP Morgan has 98.26% of deposits are not covered. So they cover about 1.74% of cash. Wells Fargo, 98.41% of their deposits are not covered. So about 1.59% is covered with cash on hand. So that's almost nothing. Goldman Sachs is 98.76% of their deposits are not covered. So about 1.24% of its covered cash on hand. And then Alpha Bank in Greece, which is something we went into recently, 99.48% of their deposits are not covered. 0.52% is covered by cash on hand, and it's even worse for credit unions. The banks are insolvent, folks. The crisis never ended. It's just been perpetuated and pushed off under the guise of success and prosperity, and that is why it's going to come down so much harder. And the longer we wait for it to come down, the worse it's going to be, which is why you as an individual need to be independent, because freedom, the very hallmark of it, is independence and self-responsibility, which is exactly why we have to go into the solutions, which is food, water, shelter, self-defense, so you're not gathering things for the toughest guy on the block. And of course, financial responsibility, gold, silver, assets, cash flow, capital gains, cryptocurrencies that have sound fundamentals, not just any cryptocurrency. Do your own due diligence. This is our opinion, not advice. We have to say that legally, but my God, John.
But Josh, you're completely wrong about the banks. The banks are fully funded. Actually, it's bad that they have a lot of cash, because that shows that they're terribly run. And of course, with the bank could just go and sell short-term treasuries in order to cover cash back. Well, here, that's actually two people that have said that to me, and they were bankers, of course. And what I said back to them, and I haven't gotten an answer back yet. I would like to hear an answer back soon about, I said, what about those treasuries become worthless? Because the United States has just past $21 trillion in debt. Yeah, in debt that they hold. Do you think that ever is going to get paid back? And what happens throughout history, I told them, when any debt-based currency falters, well, those treasuries that you thought would raise cash with, they're becoming basically worthless, and the whole system collapses. And you have
Who wants U.S. treasuries?
Well,
anyway?
Yeah, the bankers are terribly afraid of this bank run that could get created, because they have such a small amounts of cash on their hand. And if people actually want to have some freedom for themselves, they want to get their money out in cash. Unfortunately, it's still under the fiat currency slave system, but at least they get some form of freedom back to themselves. They are looked upon as terrorists, and they're getting reports submitted that you pesky peasant, you dared to take out some money out to buy something without us knowing exactly what you're buying. This is just insane, and it's just turning into a farce where all these people are depending on all this money that have been created in these pension funds, and we've just been sitting back. And a lot of people now are waking up to with RSPs and with 401ks in the States. They were waking up to suddenly, because a lot of people didn't understand that they had to pay 30-40% in income tax on all that money. So they thought they had a lot of money that they saved up in these pension funds, which it looks like it's very dangerously close to probably not even getting it. They thought they were going to get it, and then suddenly they lose all that money, and then they have to pay 30-40% on that is lost again. So it's just like an insane bubble. We should call it a bubble, Josh, the pension bubble, which is also another bubble on top of all the other bubbles that we talked about.
Yeah, well, I'm just thinking of the idea of people doing a run on a bank with such such little cash on hand, and the idea that maybe one person might get their cash out. Like, how many people are? I
have an idea, and maybe we should start doing this, Josh. We should just stand out with placards, out. Hopefully, we can be on public land, and then we could stand there. This bank does not have enough cash for you to get out of your bank. People need to understand this, because these banks are doing so much corruption, and with, of course, the investments, they are earning massive amounts of billions of dollars, trading all of this. And then, of course, we are left short-handed again, the populace, because we trusted the bankers yet again. And every time throughout history, people have trusted bankers, they come, empty-handed usually.
Be self-sufficient. There's nothing the government and the banking system wants more than your subservience and your debt servitude. And if you're shoved down a bottomless pit of debt, you're forced to ask for a ladder up from the government or the banking system, which puts you in perfect servitude to them. Don't allow it to happen. Break free, good people. Thanks for going into this with us, John. And until next time, this is Josh Sigurdson and John Sneisen signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth,
be the change.
Like what you see here at WAM, don't forget to check the links below. GoFundMe, Patreon, we can't do it without you. Any donation is very much appreciated, especially as we are so vastly demonetized and censored by YouTube as the ADL comes in and flags all of our content as hate speech. You can also find our Bitcoin address in the description as well as on the screen for you to scan, if you please. And don't forget to find us at Josh Sigurdson at steemit.com. That's steemit.com, the future of social media, where you get paid in the upvote of your post in cryptocurrency, Steem that is. So don't forget to find us there, and until next time, this is Josh Sigurdson signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change.